Welcome. Obviously, we've been saying welcome for those that have been joining us, but to Awakening Through Dreams. We are thrilled to see so many friendly faces, and we understand that some of you have turned your video off for the sake of bandwidth. It is a real challenge these days, so that is completely fine if you want to share video or not. We'll bounce into speaker view here as soon as we get going. But really excited for the topic today. Obviously, dream work, it's what we've been pushing out and what you've all signed up for out of the intrigue of what's to come. It's building off of one of the core components within chapter 9 of Deborah Welch's story and how she worked through some transition, and she'll dive into more of that with us. So without further ado, I'll jump into some quick intros and we'll get things started. And know we're going to have a few more popping in as we go. So don't let that distract you. I'm going to go into speaker view so you can see who's speaking here. Okay. Right. Okay. Hi, I'm your facilitator, Jenny Knuth. I've been working with the Wisdom from the Woods team for a handful of months now. And I'll be your facilitator today, and we've got some great guides with us. Starting out, we've got Ginny Gilmore, so probably a familiar name and face for many. Ginny is one of the co-authors of Wisdom from the Woods, but Ginny is also, just a little bit of background for those not familiar, Ginny is so passionate about learning and leadership and fostering systemic change rooted in healing and wholeness in the world. She's done tremendous work over the last 20 years and has been dedicated to supporting others in their lifelong servant leadership journey. And really the brilliance and light and start of Wisdom from the Woods is her healing journey story. And we can get into some of that in the Q&A, but that's really, what resonated with so many, especially our next presenter, Dwayne Trammell. Dwayne is founding partner and president of Trammell mcgee-copper and Associates. And Dwayne has spent 35 years doing tremendous work in the realm of creating and delivering workshops around leadership. Dwayne is also co-author, and the healing journey that Ginny had put together really resonated with him during his challenges and changes and experiences of loss. And so that's really their collaboration is what's brought Wisdom from the Woods together. And then lastly, we have Dr. Deborah Welch here with us today to lead us into dream work and how her story, her contributor story, really dives into the essence of dream work and helped her work through her loss and transition. And Deborah is faculty of Capella University. She's been teaching the psychology of leadership and really doing great research and work in the realms of self-awareness, reflection, and leadership. So some great individuals with us today to guide us in dream work and awakening the possibilities, the power of dreams in our waking lives. Without further ado, I'll throw it over to Dwayne to get us started.
We are going to talk about chapter 9 specifically, and Deborah's going to tell her story, and then I'm going to share a little bit about how her work really has affected me. I hadn't done much with dream work before, and it was just astounding and amazing. But first, I'd like to tell you a little bit about how we got to this point with Deborah even having an essay in our book. I want to give generous credit to Jenny. It was her idea to invite some of our friends to talk about their own transitions and elements that help them get through their transitions. And Jenny and Deborah go way back. And so when Jenny mentioned about inviting Deborah to include a piece in our book, I said, of course, yes, this would be wonderful. Didn't have any idea what topic she was going to choose to work with. And I'm going to let Jenny now just kind of talk about their coming together and their friendship through the years.
Thank you, Dwayne. That's a real privilege to be able to do that. So thank you so much. I met Deborah at a servant leadership workshop in Southern California in the late 1990s. That workshop was called Deep Currents, and it was about the deep currents flowing through our lives. And the workshop helped us gain a clarity of calling and purpose. And it's a workshop that I'll never forget. Well, in one of the exercises during the workshop, I had the opportunity to partner with Deborah, and we connected immediately. And our connection was important to me. So when the workshop ended and I went back to Wisconsin, my intuition told me that it was important for me to go and spend some time with Deborah as soon as I could. So I picked up the phone, I called Deborah, and before you know it, I was on a plane to Phoenix, Arizona. Well, we spent some magnificent time together then, and we built on the foundation we started at the workshop and have done so ever since over the last 20 plus years. When I spent the time with Deborah, something that happened is that I'd had a dream shortly before I came, and it addressed a dilemma that I was facing in my life. And I shared it with Deborah, and thus began one of the connections that we have watered ever since. Deborah was kind enough to process that dream with me very fully, and it was directing me to make a change in my life. I had several dreams after that that continued to do that for me, and ultimately I did make that change. As I look back on it now to prepare for this, I can see it was one of the wisest decisions of my life. Deborah and I take retreats together twice a year. We've done that for over 20 years. And I can always expect and anticipate that Deborah will come with many sheets of paper of typed out dreams where she'll underline and do all kinds of things. And she goes through those with me during our retreats. So I've had the privilege of hearing the stories of her dreams and how she's translated them and how they have helped her prioritize and focus on what she does and moved her, guided her through her life. I've had some too, and I bring them, and she's helped me with those too. And there've been several of those that have helped me make changes that have been really important in my life. After our book was published and Dwayne read Deborah's essay, I began to witness what started to happen between them. He started sharing his dreams with Deborah. He would write about it, and she started working with him. And then he brought the gifts that he always brings to this kind of partnership and gave it such beautiful structure. So I'm just as excited as all of you are to be here today to learn myself. And we just have some wonderful ways to share their experience and help all of us do that. So I'm going to turn it over to Jenny so we can get started.
Thank you so very much, Jenny, for sharing the significance of dream work and your connection with Deborah and how it all comes together, even before the book. So that's really great. I know, we've had conversations through other sessions and in the launch of the book about the learning partnership that you and Dwayne have. And I know that you and Deborah also have a really special learning partnership as well. So thank you. So Deborah, turning it over to you. Ginny and Dwayne told you that you could write about anything in regard to your contributor story, but specifically have it be tied to a time of transition and changes, and you chose to write about dreams. Could you tell us a little bit more about why?
Yes, happy to. So happy to be here with you all. I think at one level, it's because dreams helped me through the worst, most challenging transition I ever went through in my life. they've helped me through many, many times of transitions, actually. But I feel that at one level, it was just realizing that at a time that I went through a tremendous experience of grief and loss, and I was working with a therapist, I was doing a lot of different things to try to get help to get through the grief. It was really my dreams that helped me the most. I have, in early days, I was a psychotherapist, so I did dream groups and I worked a lot one-on-one with dreams. And I also do coaching now, and I often work one-on-one with people with dreams. But I really hadn't brought together the ideas around servant leadership and dream work. So I can say, boy, dreams help you see beyond the things that you're deceiving yourself on, whether it's how good life is when it feels really hard, or whether it's ways that your ego's blocking you, that you need to face in yourself when you're deceiving yourself. I mean, dreams just help you tremendously through transitions. But one other thing I'll say is that it was sort of an intuitive thing that led me to write what I wrote. In that book, Ginny said, I have an intuition, I hope you'd contribute something. And Wayne agreed. I said, I don't have any time really to write. I don't know how that's going to happen. But if something sometimes I can kind of get into a flow state, and I can write fast, but most of the time it's more of a longer, more painstaking effort to write. But I said, if that happens, I'll submit something. But if not, please go on without me. And Ginny checked in on me a few times and said, is it coming? Are you going to write anything? I don't think so. I hope so, but it doesn't look like it. And then one day, I was walking and I had a tape recorder with me, and I just started speaking into the tape, and I came home and transcribed it, and tears were flowing. It was just very much an intuitive experience to write that chapter for the book.
That is such an awesome behind the scenes story. So thank you for sharing. I am so grateful to hear that. And I know, in the book, you said dreams have, significance during the easy times, whether it be with creativity or in our leadership or in, what might seem like some of the smaller everyday decisions that we have to make. So, it's great that that's a correlation in what we hope one of the takeaways from the book is for individuals, or has been, because I know there's probably some individuals here that have read the book. But what you started with was that dreams really helped you through some tremendous grief. And I want to just touch on that a little bit, because it shows that dreams can help during the really hard, challenging, just tough times. And that's going to be different for each person. So I'd love to hear a little bit more about that personal story of loss and how dreams helped you.
It was 1987, and my fiance at the time we had been together 3 years, left in my car. He was drunk, and I think it was 2 a.m. that I had a call from the police saying that my car had been totaled and that Bruce was in the morgue. And that was just how it was presented to me. It was very, very traumatic experience because we had just had a fight. So the day that, the next morning when the sun came up after losing Bruce, I was like, I couldn't believe it, that the sun's coming up and that everybody's getting in their cars and going to work like nothing's changed, because for me, everything had changed. Mm-hmm. And I just really didn't even know the depths of the amount of pain and trauma that I had been going through with that experience. But like I said earlier, I worked with a therapist, I did other kinds of things. But I happened to be doing a dream process from this book, Dream Makers. It was just another experience I was working with on dreams. And through that process, I would write out my feelings and I would get dreams that would help me. So I had dreams that helped me through the numbness phase of the grief process. And I had dreams that helped me through the anger phase when I was angry that he was gone, and sadness. And then the dream that I share in the chapter is the one when I needed to forgive myself and deal with all the guilt. And so in that dream, I know Bruce is going to die, and I am there before the fight happened, and I'm doing everything different. I'm just being as loving as I can. And I'm just doing, you know, all the things I told myself I shouldn't have done. I didn't do any of them. And as the dream continued, I realized he's still going to die. And then I realized it didn't have anything to do with anything I did. And so at that moment, a lot of guilt went off my shoulders, because this was Bruce's trajectory and it wasn't about me. And once I had that experience, the last part of the dream was I asked Bruce, is there anything you'd want me to know if you knew you were going to die? And he said, think of the image of who I'm becoming. Mm. And that, when I woke up, it was like I had been with him. I just felt like he had hugged me. And I rewrote my story. I no longer saw his death as me being in a victim story and him being in a victim story. I saw him going on to something, and I saw, you know, myself as having had a 3-year love story with Bruce. And it was a few months later that I found myself in Phoenix with my husband now. We've been together since '89, and he's on the call with us today. And also I had been, when I was in so much guilt, I had really sabotaged some of my work. I had been a psychotherapist, but I was feeling like, oh, I can't really serve anybody. But once that healing happened, it was almost like I was catapulted forward in my work and became a leader in the organization, and just many, many great things happened. So I just feel like there's so many messages from that dream about what can happen in great dreams. And, or the Jungians call them big dreams, dreams that help us realize there's something bigger than ourselves, bigger than we can see.
Thank you for sharing that story. My heart was with you the whole way, you know, in sharing the devastation and then, you know, the revelation along the way. And I'm so grateful that DreamWork was there for you during that time. It's clear it's catapulted you, and I'm so hopeful that it helps individuals here look at tough times as well as a chance for this. So speaking of catapulting, going back to that, you continued to research and do personal work with dreams. So in the book, you suggest some questions on how to take that deeper. And so we've got an application of where it helps. Now let's kind of, and we'll get into more with Dwayne and his experience too, but I'd love to hear a little bit about your specific suggestions for going deeper in dream work.
Well, I have a ton of processes and I use all of them in a lot of different ways. What I really hoped would happen in the chapter was to just give people 3 or 4 questions that could be starting points of a trajectory. And so, you know, I asked, what are your feelings in the dream? Because if you work with the feelings you have in the dream, and you start to talk about them and you have conversations on them, and you can have those in a very simple way, it can open up quite amazing things. So, and if people have been through trauma, if they're having nightmares, if you've been through post-traumatic stress, I know cops have cop dreams about, the gun doesn't shoot or the backup's not there, that can be nightmares, any kinds of dreams that bring up feelings. Those feelings can really be processed through and we can heal. And psychologists that work with PTSD can tell you a lot about that. Then I asked about the role in the dream. And again, if you can take yourself from a role where you're just observing, a role where you are a victim, into the starring role in the dream, even if you don't do it during the dream, if you do it in waking, if you start to say, is there anything that feels like that role in waking? And that kind of goes back to the dream that Ginny was talking about. I remember people's dreams years later. It's just something I don't forget, but I still remember that there was an orchestra leader leading the orchestra and not leading it in a way that was in the direction of the servant leadership that Ginny really cared about. And her role was more on the sideline. And as we were working with it, she chose a different role with the person in the dream and the group. And, fast forward to so many things that she has opened up, Sophia, and so many other great leadership work that she's done. I think there's a couple other questions in there. One is about the perspective from deeper wisdom. So sometimes what I'll do, and I've done more of this over the years than I used to, is look at, either do a journaling or a meditation, but read an inspiring quote or think about something that is just much more beautiful and transcendent. And then allow myself to reflect on that dream. Because sometimes when you don't remember your dreams, you will remember them later in a shower or in a meditation, or when you're looking at beauty in nature. And so I'll use a quote like, and I had a couple examples. This was a quote from mcgee-copper. She just quoting her felt important today, and having Dwayne in the treehouse where Anne and Dwayne did so much of their work together, just all feels connected. But, she said of our VSLC group, which some of you here are involved with that or have been, you help me remember my unfolding greatness and help me get out of my own way. Sometimes I waste so much time denying my genius and trying to shrink back and be average. But each time I come together with one of you, I taste the possibilities of our collective dreams. I might say a quote like that to myself and then ask myself how, from that perspective, from the perspective of beauty and greatness, what could this dream be telling me? So those are some examples.
I love it, especially the quote that you're sharing from Anne. I know that's very special. And there's somebody asking, Amber's asking to write that in the chat. So you're specifically looking for the quote, Amber? We can maybe get that. If we don't get it in the chat right away, because I know I have more, well, I do have more questions for Deborah. We'll get it pushed out at the end of the session, because actually this is a great segue. I wanted to make sure to let you all know that there will be information shared after, including an Awakening Through Dreams little starter guide. And if you don't have the book, you can access this download on the website. And it goes through some of the bits and pieces that Deborah was just sharing, writing down what you can remember, even if it's chicken scratch. Just start with the feelings, the characters, the words, images, whatever it might be, the questions she lays out. There's a lot of great, just fundamental pieces here that can really elevate the work that you're doing around dream work. So I'll pop that in the chat as well here shortly, and that can be a supporting piece, because we'll come back around to some of the secondary pages in that PDF as well. So building off of that, Deborah, you mentioned dreams. Sometimes, we don't remember, and you were just speaking to that. Like, there's certain things that we can do, or I'll be talking to somebody and they'll say something and it'll pop into my, oh yeah, I had this really interesting dream last night. But what would you recommend for those individuals here or out there in the world that say, well, I don't remember my dreams, or if I do, I just, there's not a lot there. Like, what advice would you give to people if they really wanted to invest in this work and this possibility, but they're struggling with remembering the details, or even remembering it all, or even having dreams from the get-go?
Yeah, sometimes you may not remember anything at all, but if you set an intention, you can even put a notepad next to your bed or your iPhone with your voice recorder, and just have the intention, or write a little note, I'd like to have dreams. You can incubate something you like to have a dream on. And if you don't remember anything, that's fine. Or if you remember something that doesn't make any sense, and maybe it's just, a picture of an elephant, and you think that doesn't have any meaning, just write it down, because your dream maker, as you show that you're paying attention, you will start to remember more dreams. I think that's one of the main things I'd say.
That's great. And that really segues quite well into the conversation that we're going to pull Dwayne into, because I know this awakened a lot within Dwayne and his, I think it's just life. I mean, the book captures a lot of different stories of change and challenge and loss and grief, but life is up and down, and those challenges and changes are going to keep coming at us. So Dwayne, I'd love to pull you in now. And Deborah, thank you so much for sharing. We'll definitely come back and pull you into some Q&A at the end here. But Dwayne, you were one of those people who didn't dream much or couldn't really remember your dreams until you started dialoguing with Deborah about what could help you in this, and her essay in chapter 9. So could you talk to what changed for you, what helped you in this?
Sure. I had attended, a dream seminar weekend experience in probably 35 years or so ago. And it was meaningful, but nothing really came of it. I will say one thing, that 34 years ago, I had kind of a prophetic dream, and it just came out of the blue, about a good Samaritan. And it had a person that I had recently met, who was a minister. And so I decided to call him up and ask him if he'd go to lunch, and I'd like to tell him about this dream that I had. We did, and he is now my husband of 33 years. It turned out Stephen was the Good Samaritan in this work, and he has been a Good Samaritan for these last 34 years in the work that he does. But past that, I hadn't really done a lot of with dream work, and so I was intrigued by this. And I'm a person that really wants to experiment and try something kind of before I'm a believer, that, and not that there's nothing untrue about it, but some things work for some people and some things work for other people. So when Deborah, I mentioned a couple of dreams that I had, and she began sharing some of these questions with me, and informally we began doing this work, these dreams took on greater meaning. So after I read her piece that's in the book, some of the questions that she mentioned, I'm a process person. So I decided I'm going to formalize this, and this is going to become a research experiment to see if I can do something better with dreams. And I'll jump to the ending, and that is that over the last 8 months, for a person who could not remember their dreams or didn't think they dreamed very much, I've had more than 54 complicated dreams in Technicolor with incredible detail. And I mean, we're talking about, all kinds of different dreams, almost like Netflix series that continued on, all very different. Um, and I began to see that in our subconscious is working all night long on things that we're processing, but it wants our dream maker or our subconscious, whatever you want to call it, wants to get our attention. And the way that our attention sometimes is, we get hit upside of the head too before, is through these crazy, wild, unusual incidents or images. So that's really what started this for me.
That's really great. You completely surprised me with the first dream you shared. How beautiful is that? The dream you had that led to meeting Stephen and obviously getting together with him, marrying him, and creating the life that you have. That's so awesome. So thank you for sharing that, and also thank you for sharing the left side of the brain in just strategic and process aspect, because it's easy for some people to come at this and think, oh, that's just not for me, even if they're having dreams, right? They just don't think it has the power and potential. So I think we'll kind of dive into a little bit more of that as we go in here with, if you could, a little bit of some detail and I guess diving into your process even further with a specific example and how you use Deborah's ideas.
Sure. Do you want to share the
Yeah.
form first, and we
Yeah.
can, let me just kind of walk people through what, again, Deborah mentioned that she has many different processes, and these questions are just one. And Jenny has a different way that she processes his dreams. But this is just something that worked for me because I'm kind of a left brain analytical person and I like the analysis part of it. So what I did was I took her questions that were in the chapter and put them basically in a document that I just use and go to my computer and type with. Now, I'm one of those people that having the pad beside the bed didn't work for me because I'm too sleepy. If I wake up momentarily after a dream, and if I start focusing on it and writing it down, I'll be awake for the next 2 hours, and that just doesn't work for me. And just by chance, I kind of happened on the whole idea of using the notes feature on my iPhone. And I would just type out some bullet points, basically, of what I remembered about the dream the next morning. And Jenny, the article that you posted in the Facebook promo for this, if for some reason people in our audience did not see that, that is a wonderful article, and it explains the science behind dreaming. And there were so many things that just were so true for me. And one is that the synaptic connections in the brain that form the dreams, they start to loosen and disappear. And that's why, unless it's a nightmare or something that's really bold, we don't remember those dreams. And sometimes they can, what I call, evaporate 5 or 10 minutes after I awaken. So it's another reason, like Deborah said, to either, use the recording feature on your phone or have a pad or do something to jot down just a few notes. So that's what I do. And then I maybe, because of schedule, it may be a couple of days later that I go back to those bullet points, and then I'll fill in the gaps. And so on this form, we've got describe your dream. I will write, and actually I type, I don't write in on these. I'll do it on my computer. And then on the table part down there, I note if there are any particular characters, the feelings that Deborah mentioned, what role that I'm playing in the dream. Is it supporting? Is it a supporting role, or is it a major role, or am I just an observer looking? And then what heart or spiritual implications that I draw from that? And the question that I found most fascinating that I've never heard anybody else mention before is, okay, now that you've had this dream, what could have happened next in the dream? And Deborah mentioned a little bit of that with the Bruce story and her fiance. And I'd never done that before. And I thought, okay, this is a way that you can really take these dreams and make something powerful for them in your waking life. So the example that I've got here is just a dream I had back in November. I've got a couple of people from Bridgeway, I think, that are on the phone call, and one of my major clients. And I was actually preparing for a seminar, which was the Awakening Genius. And I find it not coincidental that I'm sitting here in the treehouse and my business partner. We did all this work together. And here I am talking about dreams. I'm sure she's hovering around somewhere as we're doing this. But I had this dream that I was working on this seminar. But then I realized all of a sudden I had another seminar booked at the same time in New York City. And I was just panicked because in our business, double booking is your worst nightmare. And as Deborah was saying, there are images that we have, and I know that particular image was one to get my attention about something, because double booking is a nightmarish kind of thing. So the other thing that was odd in this dream that made absolutely no sense was that I made a phone call to the people in New York where I was supposed to be giving this other seminar. And they said, no, we're all prepared and ready for you. And we have all the art supplies, the children's art supplies for the little boy that will be attending with you or whatever. And I thought, we don't have children in our seminars and we don't do any of this. And I thought, this is weird and crazy. I was thinking this as an observer in my dream. And I thought, what confusion is there about this? And so anyway, what I did find out that it wasn't double booked after all. They were on different days and the dream kind of had a happy ending and everybody was happy. So as I went back and looked at the different elements of that, I already mentioned the double booking thing. That's just an attention getter. There's fear, calendaring mistakes or things that you can't recover from, or they're very difficult to recover from. The location, New York City, is one of my favorite cities to visit and play. Go to Broadway and all. Unfortunately, right now, we've got the pandemic, and that's not possible. But that image and that symbol, it's not a coincidence that that was there. The Awakening Genius Seminar is one of my favorite that we do, and it always reminds me to pay attention to my own strengths and my own abilities. And at that time, it was really, again, uh, talking about a new era that I'm in 2021. The takeaways are the last piece of this. And that's when I began to think about, okay, my dream maker was trying to get my attention. Um, Seminars are important. Paying attention to my strengths are important. But the thing that was the weirdest was the little boy piece of that and having the art supplies. And I thought, what in the heck could that mean? And what I realized was that um, I have really been putting off play a lot in my life, and working lots of hours in the consulting business, and especially from working from home. Many of you have discovered that in the pandemic, that I find myself when Stephen leaves sitting down at my computer grabbing a sandwich for 10 minutes at lunch and continuing to work until he comes home and through the door. And um, I wrote a book about taking breaks, but I haven't been taking breaks or doing that sort of thing. So as I thought about this dream, I realized that, again, my subconscious, my dream maker was saying, and hitting me upside the head with the 2x4, saying that, you need to balance this work with some play. Anne used to always say, we need to erase that script that's in our head. When all your work is finished, then you can go out and play. Well, guess what? All of our work is never, ever going to be finished. So go out and play now, because if you don't, you won't ever get the chance. So the last thing that I would just say about that is curiosity. I didn't mention this, but one of the things that was in the dream was that I decided that I could use hotel points for our, travel. And I thought, what does that mean? And it made me curious about resources that are available to me in my work right now that may not be financial, but that could really be helpful in the things that I'm doing and in the mission that I'm doing. So, kind of an example of a crazy dream, lots of elements in it, and an attention grabber too.
Yes, Dwayne, thank you for walking us through that example. I will share, in looking through this in preparation for this session today, just the detail here. And I know we'll kind of get to a little bit of that phased approach here to really hone in on that for individuals and have this not seem like an overwhelming thing, but just the process and how this walks them through, okay, just write it down right off the bat and then come back and reflect, is great. And it really has helped me think through some of the dreams that are popping up for me. I still haven't gotten to the habit of jotting them down in the morning. I just kind of maybe reflect in my morning before I start my day. But there's so much here that I love how you've reflected and mapped. It's just brilliant. So I appreciate you sharing candidly your dreams and the takeaways, and how you've hopefully took some action on that play. I know I can resonate with not playing enough and really aspiring to do more of that. So this is fantastic. But if one of our participants wanted to really get started, you started to dive into this a little bit, what would your recommendations be, perhaps more building off of this process? And I'll change the slide here for you to elaborate on a little bit too.
Terrific. I think the first thing that Deborah mentioned was declaring intention. And I know this sounds kind of wacky to some people. It may, it did to me, I will confess, to begin with. But when I'm starting to, drift off to sleep, again, the science, we're coming from beta waves going into alpha, and so our brain waves are slowing down, is to begin clear intention. And I do that. Sometimes I'll talk to my dream maker right before I go to sleep. I'll say, if there's anything that you need to tell me or process, while I'm asleep, I'm open to it. Let the dreams come, or what, however you would say it, if you're, and some of this really crosses over to the spiritual realm with me. And I think it does for a lot of people. And I will say, God, if there's anything that I need to deal with, help me, see it in a dream. And we've seen that, through scriptural text. Finding a way to take notes about key parts of your dream. We've talked about whatever works for you, and you have to try different things on that. Transcribing and making sense of your first notes. I want to hold this up just so you can see. I started out with just a journal and a little thing, and now I have this huge notebook, because with when the dreams start coming and you write this detail down, that's when you can begin to see patterns. And that's something we didn't even talk about. But as I looked through different dreams, even though they were all different dreams, I began to see patterns about this next phase or era of my life. And the patterns just mentioned. And the action insights, again, I think that's a piece that I learned from Deborah on this, that these, yes, are for reflection and for wondering and curiosity, but they also may contain some things that in your waking hours, you're just not taking action on, and your subconscious is telling you, wake up, do something about this. I'm giving you all these wonderful images and crazy, messages, but I'm trying to get your attention. So that's been the thing that's been most exciting about it. The bonus, or the calendar correlation experience, that was something I was just curious about. And I did it actually on a real calendar. And I began just noting the dates that I had dreams. And at first, they were coming to me every 8 days. It was really weird. I don't know what the significance of that was, but that was for the first 3 months. And now they're just random all over the place. But that's fun to track them and see if there's something that is happening there.
Awesome. I will just quickly highlight here that we've got all of Dwayne's reflections in that download as well. So he elaborated on each of the steps that were outlined. So if that's at all helpful for more of the left-brained, process-oriented individuals on this call, or if you know someone and want to share it, please download it and let us know how it helps you. It's what it's all here for. So Dwayne, I love how you have shared, just the declaring intention. That's how it all starts, right? And, I know I will go to bed and whether it's ruminating about the worries or reflecting about the joys and the gratitude, I'm definitely going to have to start with some conversations with my dream maker, because I have some pretty intense dreams, but I'm looking forward to incorporating some of these practices. So thank you for sharing all of that. And I'm sure all of this has raised some questions from our participants. So we want to take the last handful of minutes here and open the floor to any questions. So if you want to raise your hand or jump in the chat, we can pull in the guides here, Deborah, Dwayne, Ginny, or any other insights on the call on how you've experienced dream work. I do know there was one question. Deborah, did you want to invite, was it Gail to kind of share a little bit of her reflections?
Yeah. And wow, that was just so wonderful to hear the way you did that all, Dwayne. And I just want to go back and emphasize how important it is to take an action, and just finding different ways. You can do mandalas, you can do art along with the charting. And I just wanted to say that, we can, starting in the simplest ways you can is wonderful. And there's people who have written about sharing with their family members, sharing with their young kids about dreams, and just the kind of conversations it can open up, as well as, I've been on a call with a colleague and he said, I overslept, and I just had to say, oh, did you happen to have any dreams? And it changed something. Gail and I have hiked, every week we hike Pinnacle Peak here in Phoenix, and we often do dream sharing. And I just wondered if you'd say a few words about that, Gail.
Oh, I'd be glad to, Deborah. It's just been so wonderful to hear all of you talk about dreams. And I just want to reinforce what Dwayne has talked about, and Ginny, and you, Deborah. It's for all the time that I've been hiking with Deborah, it would just kind of casually come into our conversation. Deborah would ask about my dreams. And I always saw dreams as kind of like sitting in a movie theater and watching a drama or a comedy or a tragedy or whatever. And oh my gosh, what is this? What's happening? And what Deborah would do with me, and just to kind of get a sense that dream work, it really is like a skill. It's an insight, it's a skill. And what Deborah would do is that she would gently prod me on whatever dream I had that night. Many of them I wouldn't remember, but she helped me to make that transition that the three of you talked about, from going from an observer, maybe interpreting some insight, to being much more active about the dreams. And so what I developed through Deborah's coaching was much more of an ability to realize that in my dreams, that sometimes the various people were versions of myself, and that I could understand the dream better if I realized that I was taking an active part, playing different roles, all of it there to help guide me, to give me some insight, to help me make a hard decision, to maybe let go, maybe forgive somebody else, maybe forgive myself. But all of those things, over the years, as she would help me go through my dreams, it's like I started to develop my own sort of skill to be able to how to, just as Dwayne said, to go into sleep with the intention of not only having a dream, an insightful dream, but that the dream could have more of my direction of how I would like it to go, so that I could resolve something that had happened in my life, so that I could let go, so I had the courage to do something differently. And because of that, I find that I remember dreams more the next day. And that's because they have so much power for me. So it's just more like a testimonial to say it is such a worthwhile thing. And I've told Deborah, I said, Deborah, you've got to bring this to other people. This is so, it's like having this tremendous resource all in my brain and in my heart.
That is a beautiful testimony. And I love how you bring it back to your heart, you know, and so much of what this community is coming around is the wisdom that lives in our hearts and in our experiences. And dreams are just one roadmap way to really diving into those and experiencing those and taking action. So thank you so much for sharing. All right. Anything else, Deborah?
There was a question, Jenny, from Aaron Jared about awake creativity and dreams. Do you see that?
Yep. Aaron shared, and Aaron, if you want to jump on and share any further reflections, please do. But she shared, do you see a correlation between wakeful creativity and dream work? Anybody want to jump in on that?
I'll start. Yes, there's a huge correlation, and I have had dreams. I wrote a book on forgiveness in the workplace, and it came through a dream that said, forgiveness is on the agenda. What are you going to do? There's books about writers and dream work. There's the person who invented the sewing machine had a dream. A lot of people who create movies. Stephen King gets a lot of his material from dreams. Maya Angelou is featured in this book on writers dreaming, about how certain kinds of dreams are happening for her when she's doing her best work. So huge correlation.
Awesome.
Deborah, do you want to say something about connecting artwork or mandalas or that kind of thing, you know, and engaging your creative spirit while you're awake, that might connect with perhaps a clarity about a dream or something in your heart that you're wishing would have happened in your dream or anything like that?
Yeah, Patricia Garfield has a book about mandalas and dreams, and she shows you the different pieces of art that she worked with as, I think it's called the Branching Woman Dream, different dreams that were transformational for her. And I often use art. I like to journal with art and draw pictures from my dreams or gather pictures. So Ginny, I think you've done some with that, haven't you?
I have. That's been very powerful for me, because in a way it's continues Aaron Jared's question, and you keep the spirit of creativity going while you're awake that may have begun in your dream, and something connects in that with spirit or muse or, you know, the dream maker, and clarifying the message, right? And it just comes through sometimes images that you create yourself, create through you. Yeah.
Well, I'd love to see if anybody has the courage to share their dream artwork. You know, we've got Dwayne's journaling. I would love to see the mandala artwork or anything, just as a comparison and just sharing how others have explored and brought their creativity to life. I love it. So thank you for sharing. We do have a question. Miranda, do you want to jump in and share your question?
Yeah, I just wanted to see that I'm having like a profound experience, first of all. And this is just blowing my mind because the past week, month, it's just all kind of helped lead me to here. So thank you guys so much. But I wanted to see if anyone has seen the Netflix show called Surviving Death. It's crazy. The first episode particularly, and it talks about people who have had near-death experiences and where they flatline, but they still experience consciousness. And anyway, I'm glad after this conversation, I don't have to die to like touch with my unconscious. Anyway, but I'm really excited. The dreams that I can remember right now have been nightmares, and I just have pushed them back, and I'm like, wow, I want to explore that a lot more because you know, to just have that experience of some healing. But anyway, that's all I wanted to say. I recommend, especially that first episode. It's really powerful. It's in the same energy that we're having right now. And just again, thank you guys for your work. I cannot believe that this is just something that you are doing because it's really profound, and thank you.
Awesome.
Thanks, Miranda.
Yeah, thanks, Miranda. Your question kind of segues into another one that came into the chat. So, you know, you've shared, Miranda, that you had some nightmares and some things that just kind of maybe keep coming up. I know that's something where I have a recurring dream of being chased, and we won't get into any of that in this session here. But Gail had asked, okay, I remember and write my dreams. How do you get to the takeaway stage? And Dwayne, I'm curious if there's anything that you might be able to share in that realm for Gail and Miranda and everybody else on the call.
Since that was the newest piece of this for me, it took a little while for me to get there. And as far as how I personally did, when I began to see patterns in my dreams, that was something that was helpful. If I saw a recurring thing of me being in a new location, a new place, being scared or being frightened, I had a commonality in several dreams, being with Stephen, and then us getting separated and lost and having fear about that. So back to Deborah's process, I started thinking, okay, the feeling of being lost, fear, going into a new era. Well, guess what? 2021 is going to be a new era for me. It's going to be very different from 2020. And so what I needed to do in the takeaway part was begin to figure out what was making me afraid of that new era and face it. And a lot of the techniques that we have in our book that we talk about, practices, help you to do that, to face those fears about transition. And then the other piece of it was to really start, again, to get to the action part of it, was naming that transition that I was going into for 2021 and begin to work on all different pieces. And I'm talking about tactical things like everything from financial to what I get up in the morning, how I schedule my day, and everything else. So for me, it's looking at dreams. It might just be one dream, but when you see it coming to you in 5 different dreams, then it's time to take action.
That's a very good point. They're repeating for a reason, more than likely. And if it's not a 2x4 that one time, it's going to be a 2x4 that 3rd or 4th time. So thank you. And what I'm really hearing too is it's a practice. It's not just going to immediately happen. You need to declare that intention and do the work, and also don't be afraid to ask for support. Maybe you have a learning partner that goes on a hike with you and guides you, or reference a book. I mean, I've written down a couple of the books referenced here, and we'll get those shared out on the Wisdom from the Woods Facebook page too. There are a few more questions popping in, but I do want to acknowledge the time. So if there are others that have a hard stop at 1, just want to give you that chance to hop off, and thank you for being here. We appreciate you taking time to dive into the realm of dream work and elevating the possibilities through dreams. Thank you to Deborah and Dwayne and Ginny for your guidance and your sharing of your experiences. And yeah, this has been fantastic. So yep, we've got the link in the chat again for more information. We'll follow up with some emails if you want to rewatch the session or download the materials. So we'll get some more follow up there. But for the group that does stick around, keep throwing those questions at us. We've got one here. Deborah, did you want to say something quick?
Yeah, I'd just like to respond to a few thoughts as well on how to get to the takeaway stage. So if you're having a nightmare, for example, practicing turning to face the character that was scary can be a powerful way to have a takeaway. You'll start to see new possibilities. And we can put some books in that talk about those kinds of things as well. But so that's where that idea of considering how you can take an action, you can notice, is there a time during the day that I'm feeling that same impulse? Like when I have a nightmare, I want to run away. Something that happened during the day where I felt like I wanted to run away yesterday. You can start to journal about it. It can help you move towards the takeaway stage. Just wanted to add that.
Yeah, that's a fantastic idea. I will be working with that. Like I said, and it's not like every dream is a nightmare, but it is a recurring thing that I get chased by various things. I do think part of it is what I watch. There are some shows that I watch about apocalypse type stuff. I don't watch a lot of TV, but when I do, it's ridiculous things like that. So those creatures end up in my dreams too. I think that's a little bit of it as well.
But your dream maker can really help you through nightmares. The guy who wrote The Legend of Bagger Vance, the book about the golfer, and it was made into a movie. He had a nightmare about a guy on a ship, and he was so scared, and there was only one guy that could save him. And he was like, oh, I hope this guy's going to come along and save us. And then the more that he worked with the dream and he started to unpack the characters, it ended up that they were pointing to him and saying, you're the one. And then he had a whole shift. And so he went like 10 years living in his car, writing these novels with no money coming in, and to becoming a best-selling author. So nightmares can really come in service.
Sure. Well, you already have me thinking differently about myself. So this is fantastic. But that my dreams aside, because that's not why we're here. There's a few more questions I'd love to jump into here. So going into the character stuff a little bit more, Amber, and I don't know if Amber's still on here. So if you are, Amber, please feel free to jump in and voice more. But Amber says, I would love to know if characters represent themselves in dreams, or if you have reference guide in a book or download in regards to characters. So if characters represent themselves in dreams, I'm not quite following that one, I guess. Do you guys get anything?
Sorry, I could clarify.
Perfect. Thank you, Amber.
So, I just wanted to know, like, if you have a dream about somebody is that dream usually, like, Dwayne's example is he met Steven, like, is that actually representing that person, or do you think it's an aspect of the character of that person that or does it just vary? Because I have some people in my life that continuously come into my dreams, And I don't know if I should take that as them being an important person or that it just carries a message.
It's a great question. Thank you for clarifying. And Deborah, Dwayne, Ginny, any reactions or reflections there?
I'd love to hear from Deborah first.
I would just say it varies. And I have some people that come into my dreams in a very positive way. And sometimes I'll follow through like I will if I get an intuition about connecting to someone. Other times the person's just representing a part of myself that I need to look at, or it's an opportunity to do a forgiveness work and open my heart more in a way that I had my heart shut down. Those are a few thoughts.
Thank you.
The only other thing that I would add and second the motion to is I've done a little research on that in my 52 dreams with all the different characters, because I've been fascinated with that question. Are these all a part of spotlighting a part of my personality or something in these people that is trying to speak to me, or are they just characters? And for me, and again, as Deborah says, this is so individual. About 85, I'd say 85 or 90% of the time, it's trying to get my attention about something that's in my own personality, that if I need to be more courageous, or I need to be more open, or I need to be this, then a lot of times those are the people that come, to my dream. Parents have come to my dream a lot in the past year.
I love the pulling of perhaps those characteristics that maybe you aren't accessing, whether it be courage or strength or love, compassion for yourself. That's really great. I love that.
I was thinking about, as I was listening, about a recurring dream I have. And in the dream, I was thinking about the same situation that happened many, many years ago keeps coming back in. And I am trying to make a decision about something that's really important. And sometimes I make it and then it doesn't seem right or whatever. And instead of, what came to me and listening to is, instead of going back to the real situation a long time ago or whatever, I think it's trying to tell me that there's something I'm trying to make a decision about. And so it's telling me more about that circumstance that maybe wants to get my attention now. So that's what I picked up from what various people are saying here, is because I was getting stuck on the characters, and I don't think that's what Dreammaker is trying to point out to me.
Sure. That's a great revelation. Just going on your past experiences and maybe lessons learned from those experiences, bringing them back around. The dream maker knows that and is going to say, hey, you did something here this time. We're going to replay this for you and see what's relevant today.
So I've opened up a whole new doorway about this. This is really exciting.
That's great. That's great. Awesome. We do have another question here. How would a leader expand the use of dreams? This is very relevant given the people we have on the call here today. So maybe this question was planted. No, I'm just kidding. So how would a leader expand the use of dreams to help his team or project, or encourage the use of dreams with his or her team around a common challenge? I'm intrigued.
I'll share a few thoughts. I think that would be really unusual. I haven't seen a lot of people work with their teams in the workplace on common challenges, although I certainly invite people to bring creativity in when they're working on challenges one-to-one. Although Jeremy Taylor did do some work with racism, and their team of volunteers were not, and I think I wrote about this in the chapter, they were not having any success with anything they tried. And he finally said, I think I'm going to have us start sharing our dreams. And that ended up being the key to them taking back the ways they projected on people.
Mhm.
When people are really in a divisive place, you have to take back and take your own responsibility and see things through a new lens. So that's really, that's one thing the other thing I might add is just incubate a dream. If you're having a block with a certain person or you need more creativity on something, you can write down how you'd like to have a breakthrough. Those are a few thoughts.
Many years ago, Deborah, I worked with George Sanfasone, as you remember, in the University of Michigan Operations Department Council of Equals work, and they were doing a kind of a strategic planning retreat process, and they were naming all their challenges in the circle for the whole day, and they had some challenges that they just couldn't. They were stuck. They were really stuck. So what the facilitator did was invite them all to sleep on it, so to speak, and see what happened during the nighttime for them and what they would come in with from their sleep time. That's basically the language that was used. And people came in and shared new ideas. And before we left that day, the third right answers that came through were phenomenal. They had breakthroughs that none of us could imagine when we left the day before. So I did see it used there in an exceptional way. And I hadn't realized, how applicable that is till this question came. So if that's helpful to anybody, if you can get people to just sleep on something to see what opens up for them. And Covey uses that third right answer kind of language, the breakthrough language. It can really open up something.
Love that.
Hey, Jenny, Matt here. Can I add something to that?
Please
to that
do.
question as well? I really love that question. That is a great question. And I like the looks on Deborah and Dwayne and Jenny's face when it was asked. And you know what? I connected it back to Robert Greenleaf wrote a lot about dreams, and he contrasts them with goals. And I've said before, no one really goes to your spouse the next morning and says, "Oh, I'm so excited about this goal I thought of yesterday." But you talk about your dreams, right? And so I just went round and around with a client on this who wanted me to change a slide that talked about pursuing dreams versus pursuing goals or KPIs. And I said, you know what, you can have your KPIs and your goals and all those things and something else. We're talking about dreams here. And I connect it to Deborah, your work, because just like Jenny said, you sleep on it. I think also a leadership lens that you can use in terms of a dream. So in our dreams, we can suspend gravity, right? Mm-hmm. And we can also fall frighteningly quickly into the ground, and that'd be a fear type thing. But I translate that over to, if you have this goal or this project or this objective, what reality can you suspend to imagine yourself getting there and then work backwards into it? And your dream maker is very candidly honest with you, and the leaders I respect and admire the most are candid and honest and direct and point out things that I don't want to hear. And so I think I see a direct connection to servant leadership with that. It's an awesome question.
Yeah.
Great sharing. I love that. That's going to be another one. Whether it be sleep on it and saying, okay, this is more than just a pause or a break. Those are important too. But I love the idea of, okay, sleep on it and really think about whether it's dreaming or just thinking through the idea of dreaming and how suspending reality and what might be a barrier in our thinking to take it to the next level. Awesome. Awesome sharing. We've got a few book recommendations here. There's a book I love called Einstein's Dream, which Gail's reminded of, theoretic of his writing when developing theories. So there's going to be a lot of books that we're going to have to pull a list together on some of this stuff. I mean, it's there's an interest and there's so much depth to it.
So keep checking our website. Is
Yeah,
that
we'll have to keep adding. Yep, there's currently a book list of servant leadership books out there. We might have to get a dream book list, a dreamwork book list out there. Let's see here. We got another chat coming up. Nope, Kathy. Thank you, Kathy. She has to run, but saying it was wonderful. Awesome.
I'm going to have to check out too. Thank you all so much, and I appreciate everyone that came to the seminar. And I am so lucky to have such smart partners that know a lot more about dreaming than I do. And Jenny, thank you so much for hosting. So, and this is not a signal for everybody else to get off. We've got something we've got to move to.
Sure, sounds good.
All right.
Thank you. Bye, Dwayne. I want to give a quick shout out before we lose too many other people for Sophia, Transformative Leadership Partners, being our Zoom account host. So thank you to Krista and team over there. Very much appreciate it. And we can keep talking dream work and questions or comments, trials and tribulations. Otherwise, we're just getting a lot of great feedback here. It sounds like it was impactful for many, which is wonderful.
I just wanted to, I put it in the chat for everyone, but you know, when we were talking sleep on it piece, I remember when Deborah, we would have multi-day retreats, and that would be part of the process. We'd have like a full day, one day, and we'd be, we sit in a question. We normally would come in with a number of big strategic questions that our board was trying to work out for the next year or the next several years, whatever it was that we were working on. And there always was a piece when we left at night, even though we left normally to go to some kind of social. But when the invitation was always, you know, to come back the next day. And you know, the retreats that I've been privileged to attend have been very profound. I mean, we've made some significant, huge decisions out of that space, the combination of the space of the retreat, but then also the space of the collective intention that we all left with and then came with the next day. So it's, I didn't really put that together until today, but Deborah, you do it with teams.
Yep.
Thanks for sharing that. That brings back some happy memories and reminds me that we don't have to ask specifically for dreams when we say sleep on it. It does invite the dream maker, and some people will have dreams and others will have shower moments or other ways intuition comes in.
Right. Everybody should buy a shower notebook. They make them.
I love it.
All right. Well, we might have to figure out how to continue some sessions that kind of deep dive into bits and pieces of just the roadmap and what's working for people. We'll have to get a pulse on people's interests, and you know, dream work. We could do even some mandala stuff or something. I think there's some very cool conversation and insights to share. So.
Yeah.
Great. Well, unless there's no other commentary or sharings, we'll say thank you for all. Thank you for your time, for your energy, your questions, and happy dreaming.
Thank you. Can't wait to go to bed, right?
Yes.
Everybody.
All right.
I'm just going to say goodbye to, I don't know, did Danny drop off? Danny and Barb and all of our friends from around the world that are on here, around the country anyway.
What a wonderful thing to be together.
Yeah.
I'm really interested in collective dreaming, like Jean Houston did. And like, in a sense, we did in our retreat with you, Deborah.
Yeah.
I just didn't realize how much I'd been a part of that. I've had like 3 different kinds of opportunities to be in what I would call developing the collective dream.
Right. I'm so glad you brought that up and took the conversation into another whole area in depth.
Well, especially in this time, I think that's really important.
Definitely.
You know, you could do that without being together. You could connect, like make that commitment and then come in together at a certain time and share or whatever. It could be developed. I love that. There's going to be a lot of ideas. We'll see what our dream maker brings into us, right?
There we go. Yes. We'll have to pose that question out to everyone to dream. Ask the dream maker what further conversations.
Yeah. Jerry Kugler asked, what should we dream about tonight? We should all go and dream tonight and see what it is.
Yep.
Love it, Gail.
Danny, it looked like you might be going to say something. How's your new year, or anything you would say?
This has been fascinating. I've never even gone down this road. You did describe a couple of dreams I've had as an officer back in my younger years. The only thing I can add to that, where the gun doesn't work or the bad guy's way faster than me, confidence really made those dreams go away with me. I just noticed it after some training and stuff, but I think that was kind of a low level dream compared to what you guys were talking about here. And it's definitely given me I got a whole page of notes here that I dream all the time and I just don't pay any attention to them. But I think you guys gave me a different path to explore now. So I really appreciate it. Thank you.
Awesome.
Wonderful.
So good to see you.
We'll be exciting to hear, if you do go into this a little bit differently in capturing some of that. Please keep us posted. No pressure, but would love to hear how this evolves for you.
I'll do it.
Awesome. Thank you, Danny.
I'd love to do research on the law enforcement dreams, and I don't think any of them are simpler or more complex sometimes, because one dream can have a lot of different dimensions. So that would just be fabulous, because it's another opportunity for healing in time that's so important. So thank you, Danny.
Well, my gears are turning. We've got collective dreaming, the power. We've already been talking about healing and dreaming, but there's so much in different areas in the world right now. So
what just touched me is creating your genius, or however that Dwayne said that. Mm-hmm. Getting in touch with your genius. I also think dreams, as I've listened today, help us find our way to our genius, to our best self. And that, in fact, Dwayne was connected in so many ways with potential as he was getting that dream. And here he is sitting here telling us about that dream. And here we are. And so I sense that there's a flow going through here about how we will access our dreams and get some help from today. To really be to let our genius be, and be our genius in the world today. And Deborah, you had some kind of an intention about this session in relationship to that. So I'm feeling that all coming together. All the dots are coming together.
I love it.
Great reflection. So much. I've had so many notes. I'm going to have to watch this again as a participant and take even more notes. I absolutely love what you just shared, Ginny, as far as dreams can connect us to our potential, our best self. So many messages there, because we do get in our own way every day, most of the time.
Robert Johnson has a book about that too. I don't know where is there a list of books that people have been naming that we're putting together somewhere?
I'm gonna save the chat out and grab it, but yeah, we'll have to put it on the website and share that out on social media, and so it'll be a process, but we'll get it out there as soon as we can. And yeah, send them on over if you got more.
I have to see, Barry Richmond, are you still with us? Anything? I haven't seen you since you were our very first VSLC person. It's so nice to see you here.
Yeah, it's great to see you, Deborah and Jenny. It's been so many years.
Wow.
Miss Ann.
Yeah.
She was,
For sure.
she was,
She sure
her,
is here.
her blessing walks with us, though, every day.
Yes. We still have that elder leadership graphic that you helped to put together. It's still there.
Oh, on the wise elders?
Yes.
Well, let me know if we ever decide to do anything with it.
I think we should meet again sometime. I really do. As soon as we can, we should.
All right. Well, we'll connect.
Absolutely. Wow. Barb's still here too, I see. So Barb, how is your intuitive mind processing this? Barb Goodwin.
It has generated many thoughts regarding dreams that I need to go back and now use the paperwork that you're sharing. So I appreciate the supplemental paperwork and Dwayne's direction on how it worked for him. I can't wait to go. I downloaded. That's why I was trying to do it on my iPad, and then I thought, no, I need to wait. And so that's my first go-to when I'm done here. So thank you all so much.
Thank you. So connected, intuition and dreaming.
That could be a deep dive in and of itself.
In and of itself.
Well, wonderful. Anybody else want to pop on here? We're dwindling down to 9 participants. Anybody else you want to invite out? Otherwise, we can come to a close today.
It was wonderful. Thank you, everybody, for attending and for the questions and insights, and great fun, very meaningful.
All right.
Thank
Great.
you, everyone.
Yes, feel free to reach out on our Facebook page or connect through, there's some emails and forums on our website. So we look forward to keeping in touch, and like we've been saying, happy dreaming, and best wishes, stay safe. Until next time.
Bye.
Bye, everybody.
Thank you for coming.